welcome as the sunshine, you're welcome as a king.
No mai, haere mai, and welcome to the first video in the Māori Order program. Most of us identify with what marae is and what it looks like. Its structure is unique to Māori and specific to Aotearoa. The marae encompasses our culture, our language and our history. In this video, we will look at marae development over the years. We will guide you through the pōwhiri process and hear kaumātua and others talk about their thoughts on marae and what it means to them and where they see marae development in the future.
Marae as we know them today are quite a recent development. In ancient times, the marae atia was the ground in front of the chief's house. It was used daily for many social purposes, including the airing of tribal grievances before the chief. It was the chief's role to listen to grievances of the people, letting all who had the right to stand have their say, thus finding the points of agreement, which then became the opinion of the tribe. The marae also served as a rendezvous for hunting, fishing and war parties leaving the village. Returning expeditions also met there before members dispersed to their own homes. When the marae was not in use for formal meetings, the children used it as a playground, and the youth practiced sports such as wrestling. Every day the marae served as a dining area, assembly point, and seating for adults to talk and pass the time away. The anthropologist Raymond Firth described the marae of his day in the following manner.
The marae of a village was bound up with all the most vital happenings, with warm and kindly hospitality, with stately and dignified ceremonial, with groups of hosts and visitors in positions determined by etiquette and traditional procedure. This helps account for the fact that to the native, it was more than a simple open space in the village or a convenient assembly ground. Rather, it bore distinct social importance.
Records of early navigators suggest that buildings were not as large or complex as they are today. When missionaries arrived in 1814, they were usually accommodated in the chief's house, which was the largest in the village. The precursor of the meeting house was the wharepuni, a rope or thatched sleeping house. Temporary guest houses, some up to 50 feet long and 20 feet wide, had been built in traditional times to accommodate large parties. The wharepuni was rectangular by design with side walls and roof extended at the front of the house to form a porch. These wharepuni were large enough to need 2 centre poles to bear the ridge pole and 10 popo or squared pillars down the side of the house. However, by the mid-18th century, with the introduction of new immigrants and iron tools, wharepuni began to grow and format into architectural structures we see today. Carving thrived and became more intricate art forms with the new tools available. During the land wars of the 1860s, meeting houses became symbols of tribal and pan-tribal resistance in rural hinterlands. Political alliances formed during these periods were depicted in the carvings and the usage of these marae. So Apura Nanata played a substantial role in the renewal of carving and building of new and large meeting houses throughout the early 20th century. This coincided with the Māori Councils Act 1900. The Act established village councils who attended to such issues as sanitation, health, drainage, and the provision of pure water supplies. Ngata drafted the bylaws for marae councils. These included wooden floors, improved ventilation, no fires in meeting houses unless chimneys were installed, and proper arrangements for the disposal of refuse. Te Maui Pōmare and later Sir Peter Buck worked with Ngata to promote the reforms and regulations. When Ngata became Minister of Māori Affairs, he revived interest in the art of carving by establishing the Rotorua Carving School in 1928. In cooperation with Te Puyo Herangi, Ngata launched the cultural renaissance of Māori at the opening of the meeting house Mahinarangi at Turanga Waiwai, Narua Wahia. Over 6,000 people of all tribes attended this occasion. As a result of this hui, different tribal members returned home, inspired, and began building carved houses or refurbishing old ones. After World War II, 75% of Māori population migrated to urban areas in search of work and educational opportunities. Urban marae grew out of the practical needs of these communities. Cultural and social club activities were held there alongside the growing needs of tangihanga requirements. Traditional kin-based marae have now been supplemented with church-based marae, circular pan-tribal marae and teaching-based campus marae at secondary and tertiary institutions. The history of marae development within Aotearoa clearly shows that it is a stable institution, evolving over time in response to the changing human needs. The marae represents all that is of old, all that is of the now, and challenges what will be required in the future.
Kia ora, my name is Aisha Roberts, and at some time in your life, you may get the opportunity to visit a marae. If it is your first time, you may feel uncomfortable because you may not understand what's happening or what you're supposed to do. Let's try and make it easier for you by taking you step by step through the pōwhiri process. Firstly, the visitors or manuhiri gather outside the gate. This is where introductions are made and the speakers are selected. Our koha is gathered and given to the last speaker selected for the manuhiri. The wero or challenge is performed by the host group to find out whether the manuhiri come in peace or not. The challenger places a dart or taki before the manuhiri. If the manuhiri pick it up, this means they come in peace. The first karanga is performed by the host group as a welcome to the visitors and an acknowledgement to those who have passed away.
Haramaira e te manuhiri tuarangi e mihi aroha tēnei ki ngā hau e whae. Tēnā rā koutou, tēnā rā koutou, tēnā rā koutou katoa.
The manuhiri return the greeting, letting them know who they are and why they have come. The manuhiri move on to the marae ātea and pause for a short time to remember those who have passed away. When a pōwhiri is being carried out, the tangata whenua may perform actions to a chant. Speakers and senior members of the manuhiri sit in the front seats. Older women and those who will support the speakers with waiata sit close behind. Once everyone is seated, the whakōrero process begins.
O tuia i runga tuia i raro. Karongo te pō, karongo te ao. I ta kōrero I te wānanga pūtangotango pua whio. Te marama ue nuku te marama o kahurangi. Kai o te kataitango o te wairua, he mea pai he ki te rangi Māori e ti he ngauri ora. O te mihi tuatai ki te atoa kaharawa. Ko i o mātua kore ko te whai a riko. Ko uru te tipua ko hiranga tāwhito. Nō reira e te atua, tui mai, tui mai I a tātou katoa.
A waiata is sung to support each speaker.
Haere te aroa ki te kore a tapu. E wawai a te ana I te awiti. Nau mai e ka haere taua ai.
The order in which each speaker stands can vary from tribe to tribe. In some areas, all tangata whenua speakers will talk first, followed by all manuhiri speakers. In other areas, the tangata whenua will speak first, followed by a reply from the manuhiri. Each side gets a turn until all speeches are finished.
Te marama, te mauri ora.
Oha anō he wai, e pupu a ke ana, e awane mapuna mai ana, I roto I te patu manawa.
Once the speeches are finished, the last speaker from the manuhiri places down a koha.
Koe ki ahau, he hata mea nui I tēnei au, māku I ki atu, he tangata, he
The final speech during the pōwhiri is always made by the tangata whenua.
Puaki nei nā kōrero, whakatau mai ki a mātou. Rino I tō tātou marae, tēnā koutou, kia ra hiwi tātou katoa I taua.
Tēnā koe ko te iore orira, tēnā koe ko te iore orira, hure hure hua nai runga. E ware tūne, e te taha kura whakaru kārawa mai. Ki a tahua, e tūninga kura mai nō. Ae o kira.
The hareru is when the tangata whenua and manuhiri join together to greet each other. It finalises the formal welcome and allows the manuhiri to move freely on the marae. There you have it, a short preview as to what may happen if you attend a pōwhiri. There are slight variations, but you can find that out for yourself when you experience the unique feeling of a marae visit.
The past site, of course, the fortification and the papa kāinga, or the kāinga where they lived in peace times. And the pā was the fort where they went for protection against the enemy. As opposed to a marae. And as I see it, the marae is ma meaning white and pure and clean, and rai meaning forehead, that here is the marae, ane, the marae. And so you are the marae. Here, right, the marae becomes pure, clean, everything that you go there, and everything that surrounds that concept and that philosophy.
I think that maraes have become, and are in great danger of becoming, museum pieces. That they're generally run by small groups of elderly people who can afford to run them and can afford to be there because they've got nothing better to do, I suppose. No, and I'd love to say they were dedicated, and they are. They are dedicated people, and they love working on the marae and that sort of thing. But it's just a changing face of the marae, and we wanted to reverse that situation by making it a place that was attractive to our rangatahi and to our people, so that they would participate in it.
And I think there was one occasion that happened at a funeral when I was about 13 that really stood out, that I saw two women laugh openly at our, though they thought they weren't being watched, I saw them laughing. They were laughing because when an aunt of mine had passed away and she was being taken off the marae, usually there's that reo karanga that goes out to poroporaki that person. And she was that person. And there was no voice. We had no other voice for our pa to farewell her from her marae. So she went in silence onto Urupa. And these two women laughed. And I remember that striking me. It struck a deep chord, and I thought, no way is this ever going to happen again. If I can, I will make a difference. I will turn that scene will never happen again.
Maraes can be quite prohibitive, and you'd know that. Eh? You'd be aware of that. And as a young bloke, I was very much aware of it. And they're prohibitive for a lot of reasons, until you start to sit down and analyse it and demystify all that, those tapu aspects of it, which are generally put in place for the so that the tribe can function in a good way. But over the years, there've been those things have become a mystery to our own people, and they've used that as a something that makes places like Marae's prohibitive.
I think that urban maraes in the city have been a saviour for Maori. They have been a place of comfort, of security for Maori. And many of the young people, I think, have served the marae around here quite well, because in their youth they have provided the labour force that's needed on the marae, because the oldies can't do it anymore. They may never have done it before, who knows, but I know that they can't do it anymore. So they turn towards young men, young women, to do all the things that need to be done on the marae. And thank goodness there has never been any pressure needed to get that to happen.
If you're not at Auntie's house who's acting as your second mother anyway, then you're down the marae. So we're always, in check with what's happening, and we get taught at that little age the whole process and the tikanga of what's going on around you. Yeah, sure enough, sometimes it's boring, sometimes it's not what you want to be doing, but that's just life in general, isn't it? And then you've got to take from it what you want to take from it and better the situation.
there's two names to the whittle. First whittle. Another name that is used is called matataki. The whittle was basically used to basically challenge any visitors coming onto your marae, basically to see whether or not they've come with hidden agendas to hurt anyone that's in your family, your mum, your dad. And so what the marae generally does is they send out one of their top warriors from what we call te whare tutaua, and from there the warrior is sent out and he issues what they call a taki or tau. In Waikato here we call it a manuka. And the manuka is, depending on how the visitors pick up the manuka, is how we judge whether or not they've come in peace or war. Each tribe has a different way of performing whittle, has a different integrity in the whittle. For example, Tarawa usually do a 3-man whittle. In Tainui we vary, we can do up to from 1 to 7. So it all depends on where you're brought up and what tribal affiliations you have. If you porphyry your family on, it's pretty, you don't really have to do a whittle. But usually in the case of anyone that's coming that really hasn't been to the marae before, that's when you perform the whittle. I have seen whittle done at tangi. Different type of whittle though. Usually this time, as opposed to the tangata whenua actually doing the whittle, the man will perform a whittle as a manuwhiri. It's used to challenge the dead people and their spirits as to why they've gone on, to come back into their bodies and come alive again. And of course, majority of the times it doesn't happen.
Firstly, it starts with the way everybody dresses. It's that uniform. Absolutely. You sit in front of your meeting house, you look up and you see these people, and depending on the way they're dressed, whoa, they move mountains. You look up and you know, anei, tūpato, anei, te maru o te iwi, e whakaikene. You know, the people that are coming on have a quality about them. And, you know, clothes make the man, whatever. And you see them, if they're dressed beautifully, you all stand up and take it. And the women, of course, beautiful, holding themselves erect.
I wrote an article in the New Zealand Journal of Media Studies in 95 or 6, and the title of the article was E mate haere ana te karanga I runga I ngā marae. The art of karanga is dying on the marae. And I'm probably not going to remember what wonderful things I said there. They were wonderful, but to me it is essential. It is an essential part of kaua. The tikanga is actually doing it, but the kaua is the process, the protocol. It is an essential part of kaua. And as a manuheri, if I was going onto a marae, it would be extremely insulting of me not to return that karanga, not to reply, not to acknowledge to the home people that, yes, I know who you are, I know why we've come here, I know all about your hapu, your iwi, I've learnt about your awa, your maunga, your marae, I know your immediate whānau. I would have found out all this information before I moved on to that marae, because to not do it is extremely insulting. And it's not that I maintain tikanga nor tua whakarere anake, I think our tipanui are smart. They adapted tikanga through the ages to suit the life they were living, and I think we still do that today. But in terms of karanga on the marae, I think it's essential. And vice versa, if I was tangata whenua, there's no way I'd stand at the door of my beautiful tipuna whare and say, "Haere, come on you fellas, come in, it's all right. Just come and sit down, and we'll just have a feed and carry on." I mean, you can still maintain manakitanga, but there is about setting up a process. And if you as tangata whenua don't acknowledge that some of your manuhiri might be waiwai tapu, it may be the first time they've been to this marae, then you are insulting them by not giving them a decent welcome on.
Now the first part is attracting the attention, not of the physical, but right up to the top there, from there right down to those that are standing there. Therefore, she calls to that tupuna whare. She's calling to the abstract. And that's who she's talking to. Even if it's that nice, beautiful, soft pitch of a kuia. Karanga maira, o ki ngā iwi e whakoheka nei. Now that's not a yelling, that's just a quiet, controlled call, isn't it? What that does is it makes the hackles on the back of your neck stand up. Koira te ihi. Ihi is when you get all, hey, koira te ihi, te wana, te tapu. Now the women do that, and the men stand as their protectors at the back. It's all a role play, it's all a drama. Wonderful, wonderful drama. That's the way I see it, and I feel so proud.
Harken back to how we lived to karanga, and you sort of were dragged off to all the girls were dragged off to the urupa and to karanga with your hand, and you have your haere mai rā, and then there's always a fire, or somebody who karanga and you there, haere mai rāing and or whatever. Then you drag back on the tractor or whatever to go back to karanga, then back to the whare hui, and you haere mai rā, and it's all laugh, you know, and you learn, and you're learning to karanga, and then suddenly it's your turn. It's your turn because the kuia's not there or whatever, and it's that natural progression, and that's lost. And we're making too much of a big deal. I remember my first karangaratangi, and I'm walking on the marae onto the tuatangi with all these fire around, and my mother goes, "Mau, kia koe." And because I go, this is, you know, you crying and they're crying as you're going. I go, "Ho, ko koutou ngā whaio." You know, there's this argument. Mau. And so when I teach people now with my group or tamariki or young women and I tell them that, I think that's tai ki te wā. You've been around it, tai ki te wā, it's your turn.
I'm not the tuakana, as you know. I've got 3 older sisters, and that's never a problem. When they're on deck, it's their turn to do the stuff, and I sit back quite happily. But when I'm not around them and I am required to participate in our protocols and our tikanga, I do.
Whai kōrero is structured basically in various stanzas. And in the totality of a whai kōrero, you address the wairua, the matunuitarangi, the living, the people that are there, the people that aren't there yet, and the people that weren't there. And it's structured so that all those levels are addressed at one part or the other. So it's not just a how are you, or how's the kids, bye. It's meant to encompass all the realms that ancient Māori, modern Māori, and our society today encompasses.
And you see the men, they start, and it's this drama. Take the coat off, and absolutely beautiful, absolutely. And so for your iwi, you see them, they're just wonderful. And ka tū ki te kōrero, and they stand there. You listen carefully, the women, because he concentrates on ensuring that the imagery of the words that he uses is in place, whatever. So in the meantime, you focus on what he's talking about, and you've already chosen, or maybe not, the waiata appropriate. And it rounds everything off when you do that waiata, especially one that is appropriate and you hear the words. But it doesn't have to be.
There's always going to be a desire for people to speak Māori, definitely. However, if folks aren't in that position, well, whatever goes. I think that's about the only way I can say it. But I've found that when people are not in the frame of mind of speaking Māori and can't in fact do it, then what they do is to get somebody to go with them. They will always make sure there's a māngai, a spokesperson there, who will do the talking, and so they haven't had to worry about it, you know.
I've been sitting on there for 10 years. Now it's I've got a few more words in the tea than I started with, but every now and then I still stand up with a great knot in my stomach, with the shaking of my knees, with the shaking of my body, because it's still an awesome place to sit on. And yet, it is yours, it is natural, and we should treat it as natural. And the moments when I get tongue-tied and knotted up and intense, brought on by my own intenseness for the occasion and probably the manihuri is coming on or the purpose that I'm there.
Not everybody's a speaker, not everybody's a kaikaranga. And I think an example is with my family, with my mother who brought me up, taku mama whāngai, hera ia te wahine karanga.
I saw the koha being laid, and I heard the words, and it was just, to me, was just thanking them for it. And I thought, well, why don't you speak to them? And so I, you know, if Ngāti Tūwharetoa, the people Ngāti Tūwharetoa are putting the koha down, I start from the mountain Tongariro, ne? Te moana taupo, and then the connection between them and us. And I karanga it, and then I go back, tēnei te mihi, you know, to the koha that's being laid there. And so this is just something that and Marae is learning that now. So she's learning that this, you can expand on what the old people left, eh?
I always wonder why people want to leave the kitchen and get on a paipai. Because the work is 10 times harder, you don't get a break, you certainly don't get time for a feed, and you don't get the chit-chat. So the paipai is hard work to me. It's people hold it in awe. I don't see it as a place of awe. I see it as a process, a position. Somewhere where a certain job has to be done, and you've got to practice that job to the best of your capacity.
It's like my son. He knows he doesn't talk, but he's now coming. He's now earning his right to speak for me. But I discouraged him to speak, and I discouraged other young men because ate wā, that's still a noho tapu. Kei kona tō papa, but again it's not because you can't talk because your father's there. But taihua, ate wā, and same with the karanga, so I don't support us just shoving kids up. Pai noiho ma te tamariki, e karanga te tamariki. And I remember being growled here, with me and my work, with my people, it was sort of in joke, but it's a growling. And I had some people come down from Ngāti to a wedding here, and I didn't have any, so I sent my kids group. My nanny, one of my aunties, said, "Ho, ka tonua mai e tamariki te pōwhiri a mātou." And there, ichi noiho, ichi rawa mātou, ka kore koe tonu mai o pakeke. There's all that thing. And those are things that are getting lost, eh?
That's where the kuia plays the most important role. She watches everything that goes on in the marae. She sees the kitchen, she sees the men, she knows where the children are, she sees who's coming, she knows who they are. Unless you're like me and I'm saying, "Miringa, kawai e rara," you know, and they do, "Oh, that's thing, auntie." "Oh, aye. Then you know your karanga must include them or whatever it is, eh? So that's what the most important person is, that woman. She listens carefully, she guides the men, just a quiet voice, you know, just a little quiet voice at the back to the men, and the men understand, and that's working in perfect harmony.
Marae in today's environment have been accepted as this institution of Māoridom. For its survival in the future, I believe it will always be there. I don't think it will increase in many numbers, mainly because of the physical requirements that are needed.
A marae in today's terms is about people. It's a facility, no more, no less. Cannot function if you don't have people. So if the people are not in the area, I'm talking rural areas now, if the people aren't here, then your marae and your wharenui and your wharekai stands lonely until such time as it's needed for a purpose, to house the people, to bring them back home for whatever reasons. those occasions are getting less and less. So we have to look now at the full purpose that we want a marae to be.
It's far cheaper to stay here than have to take your tangi, your mate, back home. Now, if you ask the people back home about that situation, well, they're not very happy about it. They want you to go home and take their whanaungas back to their home areas. But I've said to my wife, if anything happens to me, I don't want to go home. And that's basically the reason. I feel that I want to stay here now. And the folks back home would feel differently, of course. Well, I don't think I'll be in a position to worry about it when I pass away. They can go ahead and do what they like.
If you're talking about the popular concept where there are all these buildings standing up with carvings and a preordained environment, then I don't know. I cannot answer that. Depends on the buzz of the time, I guess. But if you're talking about a tūranga waiwai and a foundation that Māori can relate to instinctively, not taught, but just an instinctive thing when they go back onto the lands that their tupuna were on and they know a bit of that history, there's a different feeling altogether. And you can stand under a tree, and that's your marae. So in that context, let's call it in the traditional customary context, I'd say our marae will never ever die out, because they are not a physical attribute but more a spiritual attribute, and it's that spirit that actually keeps them living.
Ko te kaui mua te hapu o roto o, matawaia te ohonga mai o ngā tū.
We have now come to the end of the video, and I must bid you farewell. I hope you've learnt a lot, and it has broadened your understanding as to what a marae is, how it is more than just structural buildings. It is a living community, a mauri, a heartbeat of who we are as a people. Now I encourage you to continue your learning by looking at the rest of the resources in Ki Te One. Until I see you next time, nō reira, mauri ora.
Ki te haukainga e. Ka mui tēnā.